Brock Purdy's elbow surgery delayed at least until early March, which puts his preseason in doubt, which was already a little bit in doubt, even more in doubt now if he'll be ready for the start of the regular season. We'll get more into that, of course, and some beef happening with one particular San Francisco 49ers wide receiver and a Seahawks cornerback coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Well, I thought we were done talking about quarterbacks for the week after yesterday's pod, Croc, but just about the time we finished recording, there was a report that came out from Tom Pelissero that has since been confirmed by everybody involved in reporters and local reporters. And Brock Purdy's surgery is not happening. It should have happened Wednesday, and it did not happen Wednesday after his meeting with his doctor. Here is the official report from Tom Pelissero. 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy visited Dr. Keith Meister, who recommended postponing surgery because of ongoing inflammation in Purdy's elbow per sources. They'll reconvene in early March. All signs continue to point to a UCL repair that would have Purdy ready to go for the 2023 season. So they still think it's the same surgery, but there's still swelling, which is going on 3 weeks now, Croc, and going on a month almost now, actually. And getting into March before the surgery actually happens, and it felt like it was taking too long already. But obviously, I'm not a doctor. I have no idea how these things work, and we do have some notes from actual doctors on this. But man, this is not ideal, right, for the timeline for Brock Purdy to come back, because the 6 months was already going to put him maybe at the point, if it was exactly 6 months from surgery, to get in one preseason game and no training camp being fully cleared. And now it's looking like maybe not even at the beginning of the season he'll be ready to go in early September.
Well, it sounds like right now they're saying, well, if he gets it right now, he can be ready by week 1. And my thing, listen, Brock Purdy was awesome. Do you believe that Brock Purdy is a guy that's like, well, no matter what, right? He's just so established in the NFL that no matter what, he's plug and play week 1.
No, I mean, that's hard to do. A guy just to come in and look. So he's supposed to be able to throw it 3 months. So the big question with Purdy being ready to play is what he's able to do once he starts throwing. So once he starts throwing at 3 months, does that mean he's like Jimmy Garoppolo was last training camp, where he's just throwing on the side separately with some coaches and that's it, and he's out of practice? Or is he able to kind of throw and do some one-on-one stuff in practices, or, throw to receivers, or be involved in some drills and not in team drills or something like that? That's a big question, and how far along he'll be able to participate somewhat in training camp. Will that give the 49ers a good enough feeling to let him walk into week 1, even though he didn't get any playing time in the preseason or in training camp fully cleared, if all of a sudden he's fully cleared right before week 1? I find it hard to believe he would get thrown right in there, but it depends on what the 49ers have in competition with them too, I guess.
Right. But overall, I think just their confidence that he'll be ready for week 1, to me, that's the thing that's kind of up in the air. Obviously, you want him to have the surgery. You want him to be, recover, have that, speedy recovery, elbow fine, come back stronger with the arm, rookie of the year type deal, right? But the timeline is a little worrisome. It was already worrisome if he would have had the surgery the day after the NFC Championship game, right? Like if he'd had it then, it's like, man, Brock Purdy, that's the guy. It's his job to lose. But now, dang, he won't be there but he'll be ready for training camp. Awesome, great. But then it just kept prolonging the surgery. And, I'm counting on my fingers. Okay, 1 month. Okay, 2 months, 3 months. And I'm starting to think like, dang, like what's up with this? And then is there a chance that it is worse than what we were thinking? Or is it just, no, there's just some swelling and we'll get to it when we can? Because right now they're setting it off until what? March, excuse me?
they're going to check back early March, so we don't really have a new date on the surgery. If it's still swollen in early March, then maybe they won't do the surgery then. But this thing's going to start healing on its own too, which I guess could be good and bad. But if it's probably mostly bad if it starts healing on its own, I would think. And the doctors out there can let us know. But
because do you have to correct it? And again, I'm not a doctor. I know you're not a doctor. If it starts to heal on its own, do you have to go and kind of tear that cartilage apart and then?
Right. It would seem so, because that's why you needed the internal brace, is so it could heal properly. Is that going to happen on its own? I would assume it wouldn't, but maybe it does. Maybe it because at some point it has to start healing on its own. And I would have thought, I can't think. Croc, can you remember a time when a player had to wait this long to get surgery?
I've seen some guys put off surgery a little bit, like even with a torn ACL, if there is a little, swelling in the knee, but typically not this long out, where you're gonna get, a month and a half out, and he still hasn't had the surgery.
Yeah, that's wild. I've never quite seen anything like this. And so apparently everybody thinks it's still going to be the same surgery, and they're just waiting for the swelling to go down. We'll go to Dr. Pandya here, who is sort of the local go-to doctor, and he's on the local radio a lot talking about stuff, and on Twitter a lot. Dr. Nirav Pandya says any degree of inflammation within a joint that has to undergo a repair/reconstruction procedure, especially in a small joint like an elbow, increases the risk of infection, post-operative stiffness, and nerve issues. Waiting may push back a timeline, but is best long-term. So that's the reason why you're waiting. They're waiting because they think it's going to be best for his elbow long-term, even though, in the short term, in 6 months, that does screw up the 49ers timeline to have him back and ready to go to start the season.
There actually was a doctor that reported on it as well. And gosh, I thought I liked the tweet, but it looks like I didn't. Maybe I just read it. But I don't even want to try to guess exactly what he said. It was under when it came out about it, and then I looked underneath it, and there was a tweet, and it was a doctor, and he just kind of explained the process, and it sounded like he wasn't worried. So if he's not worried about it, I'm not worried about it. Brock Purdy, at some point, he'll be back. Trey Lance will get his shot. He'll get his opportunity. If he makes the best of it, awesome, right? And then that's tough for Brock Purdy. But if Trey Lance doesn't, then all right, hurry up, Brock Purdy, get healthy, and hopefully by week 1, he's 100% ready to go for whoever the 49ers play week 1, and I'll probably be there. So I'll be excited to watch him play live.
And then there's the other part of his surgery, which was always the case, is once they open up his elbow, they still might find that they need to do the reconstruction and the Tommy John style surgery, which is the longer recovery process. Even though they think it's the UCL repair with the internal brace is the thing they've always been talking about, the repair, that'll be the 6-month timeline. It still could be longer once they open up the elbow. So we still don't know 100%, and we don't know when it's going to happen now. But once that surgery does happen, then they'll get in there and they'll find out what the best surgery is. And so it still could be the UCL repair, but it could be reconstruction that could last longer, and we won't find that out until after the surgery happens. And right now we don't have a schedule for the surgery anymore, since it did not happen on February 22nd after all. So a little complication here for Brock Purdy. And you know what, Croc, we shouldn't be surprised, because things are never easy and things are never normal when it comes to the San Francisco 49ers quarterbacks.
Well, things are never, and again, this just goes back to the question I asked a few episodes ago. Does Kyle Shanahan just have bad luck? And I think that's what this is. He just can't have a normal offseason at the quarterback position. And it's unfortunate for him. It's unfortunate for 49er fans. We just want to know, okay, who's the quarterback, right? Most normal teams go into the offseason just knowing who their quarterback is. And it feels like every year the 49ers, we just don't. Even when we thought we did, Jimmy Garoppolo was throwing 5 interceptions in practice, and you're like, oh, hope he's okay, right? It was weird.
It's always weird, man. It's always weird. Some of it's self-inflicted by Kyle Shanahan, but most of it's just weird luck too. And that's what we're seeing right now with this Brock Purdy thing. And I've got a couple things I want to run by you. And does the timeline changing to a point where we're pretty darn sure at this point, best case even, he's not going to be cleared to be a full participant in any part of camp or preseason? I think we can safely say that at this point.
Yes.
It's very unlikely. So
he will do certain drills, and there will be things that he might be able to do, even 7-on-7, there could be a time where he does 7-on-7, but they won't let him do live, right? So it just means he won't be 100% able to get under center, take snaps, drop back, and make throws with bodies around him.
And certainly not be able to play in a preseason game.
Correct.
So that being known, what does that change for the 49ers plan this offseason next? And of course, get into this beef as well. We always love a good offseason beef between NFL players.
Real quick, unless he's Adrian Peterson, because he seemed to heal extremely quick. But yeah, go ahead.
Peterson doesn't swell, though.
Just his muscles.
Yeah, he got his surgery that day on the sideline.
Right. Was ready 2 weeks later. Ran for 2,000. He tore his ACL, and everybody's like, oh, man, it was like late. And then all of a sudden, started the season, he not only out there, he runs for 2,000 yards that year.
Crazy. Remember Jerry Rice came
And I don't think he won Comeback Player of the Year. I think Peyton Manning won it, right? Isn't that what happened?
Oh, it was the same year as Peyton Manning came back?
I think it was. Yeah, correct me. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't remember. I'll defer to you on that one.
This is why I think it was. And I know this is not a topic that we were planning on discussing. Andrew Luck got drafted the 2012 season,
yes.
Right? And the only reason why I remember this is because at this time, I was getting ready for my NFL workouts, which happened in 2013. I was working in the back of Macy's, and that was when Adrian Peterson broke the record. So so I think it all happened. So if Andrew Luck was a rookie, then that must have been the year that Peyton Manning came back to Denver.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. That adds up.
Yep. So I don't know. Absolutely. Just kind of, that's interesting. 2,000 yards and doesn't get comeback player of the year. Wow.
That's pretty nuts. All right. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel. It's midway point of the NBA season, post All-Star break. Things get really serious for the NBA now, and you can get involved in all of those things at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use, and then you can bet on everything like money line, point scorers, threes drained, NFL bets still. I know the NFL season's over. You can bet on the next Super Bowl winner, the next NFL MVP, and of course, draft props as well at FanDuel. And you can combine your bets for a bigger chance at a payout with same-game parlays. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks again, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen. Check out the rest of what the network has to offer. Locked On NFL Draft, Locked On NFL, tons of other teams covered in every sport. But make sure, if you do nothing else, subscribe to the new Peacock and Williamson YouTube channel. And I would really appreciate that. Coming at you every day, covering the entire NFL. We've got a brand new standalone YouTube channel, no longer on the Locked On NFL channel. That is youtube.com/@Peacock and Williamson. Jerry Rice came back the same season too. Another guy who's built different. It was week 1, right? When he he tore his ACL, and he came back and played the same season, but the rest of his body wasn't ready for the comeback, even though his knee was strong enough to play. And I think he hurt his opposite knee, that was the torn ACL, catching a touchdown pass.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, what did Geno Smith come back from? I just talked about comeback player of the year. And I know Geno Smith won it this year, but I'm like,
came back from sucking.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he was just a backup. It's weird. Like, what did you really come back from? Like, it's a weird award anyway. Does it have to be just an injury? You know, what do you come back from? But he came back from.
Like, I get it. Adrian Peterson, you come back from a torn ACL. Peyton Manning, you came back from having neck surgery, and they're like, you can't look left, can't look right. You'll probably never be able to throw a football again. Geno Smith is like, you were Russell Wilson's backup, and now you're comeback player of the year. Like, what?
He was active for every game for the same team last year.
And played. Remember, he played games and won a couple.
Yep.
So it's like, what the hell?
Geno's about to get paid probably by the Seahawks.
He did come back strong. Led the league in completion percentage and some other things. Like, he did come back strong.
He was good. Came back from QB purgatory is what he came back from.
Is Brock Purdy gonna come back? Comeback player of the year. Can you win comeback player of the year after you played the whole year and had to get surgery in the offseason? And then let's say he balls out.
He only missed a half a game.
3 quarters.
Or pretty much all the game. But he's not gonna win it. If all DeMar Hamlin has to play 1 snap and he's got it locked up for comeback player of the year next year.
Well, I don't know. I feel like people, I don't know, they're kind of turning on him because of his jacket he wore.
What?
Oh, you didn't see the jacket?
No.
Okay, I'll let you Google it.
What jacket?
He wore a jacket. They didn't like it. And they started to turn on him.
The NFL is weird, man. We're going to talk about some more weirdness in the NFL with Jauan Jennings and Tariq Woolen. A little beef on social media today. But first, when it comes to Brock Purdy, 49ers quarterbacks, they can't have a practice right now. No quarterback can play. Trey Lance should be cleared soon and be ready for OTAs in the entire offseason. So hopefully he doesn't re-injure something. John Lynch talking about how he needs to, prove he can stay healthy. And it's true. But does this change the plan for the 49ers? Because the 49ers could have said, we got Trey. He'll be there all offseason. We can bring in whatever journeyman and not really worry about it. And we got a couple quarterbacks, maybe draft one late, maybe an undrafted free agent to have an extra camp arm or whatever. Brock Purdy's going to come back at some time in the preseason, and then we'll know more about Trey. And then if not, then we've got Brock Purdy, and we're good to go. But now week 1 is even in question, and pretty much you can say goodbye to being fully cleared for training camp or preseason, most likely with the new timeline now for Brock Purdy. So, Croc, for you, does this change the offseason plan for the 49ers as they try to get themselves a group of quarterbacks that can take them through training camp?
No, this does not. Now, does it change the way maybe you have to view the start of the season? No, this is when things get a little weird, because I was under the assumption that there was nothing really Trey Lance could do to start week 1. That's how it felt. Like, no matter how good he did, it was like, well, Brock Purdy played well in actual games. 7 straight games, the players are behind him. George Kittle, Debo Samuel, all the guys, like, they're behind him because he was in the trenches with them.
He won the job.
In meaningful games. So, okay, you got it. So I was thinking, well, there's no way. And now, I think this makes it weird, because if Trey Lance just does play well, and that's a big if, but if Trey Lance plays well and he starts to get in his groove and the game starts to slow down, then how do you not start him week 1? So then now Brock Purdy is like, wait a minute, I'm back, I'm ready. And they're like, oh, hold on, let's watch this young guy cook a little bit more. Like, well, what the heck? So then now it's like, oh, this is your guy? And you still have the same dilemma with, well, even if Trey Lance starts week 1, they play the Seahawks and the 49ers win. Well, it's still not a meaningful game. And you want playoff games with Brock Purdy at quarterback. So again, I would like it, because I feel like the better, like I felt like with Jimmy Garoppolo on the team. Trey Lance, there's this higher ceiling. So the sooner you get him up to speed and he's starting to play better, right? If you're playing with Trey Lance and you're winning games and he continues to stack those up and he's winning, your team is better for that. Mm-hmm. If that's the case. Now, he's got to get to that point, right, where he's winning games and whatnot. But that would automatically kind of shift my opinion. Like, oh no, you got to stay with Trey. How would a team feel? And do you start to get conflicted? And then now, does anytime Trey Lance throws a bad pass, is he looking over his shoulder at Brock Purdy? Is Brock Purdy going to trot in because that's kind of the guy that Kyle wants in? Kyle's waiting for me to mess up so he can throw him in. This is a disaster. It's a disaster.
Well, and here's the other thing. So when they're putting together this plan, free agency starts March 15th. And March 15th, the 49ers might not know yet what surgery Brock Purdy's even going to get. It could still be Tommy John if he hasn't had his surgery scheduled by the time free agency opens. So when free agency opens, the 49ers might say, we still don't know. We might not have Brock Purdy all year. So we need a backup quarterback, and that's if Trey's good. And we might need a starting quarterback if Trey's not good. So I think it definitely changes the way the 49ers look at this thing. And I'm going to bring a name back that I talked about last week. And Croc, you shut it down. Everybody in the chat, we were live at the time, they shut it down. They're like, oh, no, man, you guys washed. Matt Ryan, dude. Matt Ryan's going to get cut by the Colts. Matt Ryan's going to be on the San Francisco 49ers on March 15th, Croc.
I watched him, man. I watched him. It was terrible, Peacock. He was bad. He was so bad. Again, I use the example. And again, anybody that wants to know, if you want anything that's laughable, just watch him against the Broncos. And it was two bad quarterbacks, which Tariq Woolen, we talk about Tariq Woolen, can't wait to talk about him. He said something about Russell Wilson as well that had me laughing all day. All right. But between two bad quarterbacks, Russell Wilson was playing terrible. And Matt Ryan was playing even worse. Like, he was bad. So unless you're saying, well, yeah, he was terrible, but Kyle can get him to play to this level. Okay, maybe. But he just looked shot to me. It was like that last year with Peyton Manning. Somehow Peyton Manning keeps coming up on this podcast, but Peyton Manning against the that last year when they won the Super Bowl. But when you were watching, you were just like, is he the worst quarterback in the NFL?
Yeah, throw. It's like,
He couldn't throw a 10-yard out, right? He threw a 10-yard out. It took 5 seconds to get there. It got picked off and taken the other way. He threw 10, if I'm not mistaken, this is off the top of the head. The Manning had 10 touchdowns to 16 interceptions in that last year, and he got benched for Brock Osweiler at some point, but then Osweiler was so bad, they had to put him back in. I mean, it was terrible, right?
Yeah.
Matt Ryan was bad like that. Like, he was not good.
Bad? Like, he can't physically throw anymore? Like,
He can physically throw. He actually had a long run, I think, against Vegas. He was just bad. I don't even know how else to put it. I would have to look at his stats. Maybe the stats tell a different story. But when I watched him, I'm like, this guy's not good.
I'll say this about his stats. He completed 67% of his passes. He had, I think it was like 13 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Wasn't a good touchdown to interception ratio. And he looked mostly washed in the game.
He got benched for Sam Ellinger.
Yeah. But then they brought him back because they realized that was a bad.
They brought him back because Jeff Saturday took over. They brought him back. He won a game and then lost the rest of them. Like, he was bad.
So, do you want to know who Matt Ryan beat last year?
He beat the Chiefs.
The Kansas City Chiefs. This is my Matt Ryan thing. And I thought, by the way, shout out Matt Williamson, my co-host, former NFL scout on the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Go check it out. It was part of the mailbag. That's why Matt Ryan's fresh in my mind right now. Someone asked about that connection with Matt Ryan and Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers. And I thought Williamson put it perfectly. He said, it makes perfect sense if Matt Ryan is what Joe Flacco was on the Jets. You don't bring in Matt Ryan because he's your savior and your starting quarterback. You bring in Matt Ryan and say, hey, we're going to sign you to a 1-year deal. It's not a big deal either. And you might back up Brock. You might back up Trey. But we at least know, you've won with Kyle in the past, and you might be the starter in week 1. We might need you. So he can fill a lot of roles for you. He can be a mentor, and he has to be okay with that. He could be a backup, and he has to be okay with that. Or he might be needed to start week 1, and maybe he's not washed. Maybe it's like Tom Brady, who looked washed, and it turned out he wasn't washed once he gets in a better offense on a better football team with better players around him, because the whole Colts team was bad last year. And coaching changes and, new offense for him. And there's a lot going on with the Colts. It wasn't just Matt Ryan. So as long as he can still throw the football, I got to imagine Kyle's going to look at Matt Ryan and not see washed. He's going to see, hey, we can get this guy just like how it was with Garoppolo last year. Oh, we can give him the Garoppolo deal. We can bring him back for 1 year. That's not crazy money. Kyle Shanahan's going to be all over that.
I guess you could talk me into that. When you say it like that, right, it's like the expectations. We don't expect you to start. But if you absolutely have to, right, because the Colts, it was like, you're our starting quarterback. And then it's like, dang, this isn't going well. But the 49ers, with more talent, and you say, hey, man, you could at any point in the season be the third string quarterback. But if need be, and you got to be our Joe Flacco and play, like, I guess it maybe could be worse.
Could definitely be worse.
Yeah.
Would it be worse if all of a sudden Matt Ryan's forced to start for you in week 1? Or if Nate Sudfeld's forced to start or they're going to bring in a veteran, or Nick Mullins, right? I think Nick Mullins makes a ton of sense because knows the offense. He's not threatening to any of these guys. He can be a backup, and he's one of the few people on the planet that's had the same exact surgery Brock Purdy's going to have, right? So there's a little added bit there that he can help him through that process because he's been there to have a guy like that in the locker room. So to me, Nick Mullins makes even more sense than Nate Sudfeld. And Sudfeld was kind of Scangarello's guy. Anyway, So, yeah, I don't know. Matt Ryan's starting to seem a little bit more likely than originally I thought when I saw his name out there and saw that he was going to be someone who might end up being a free agent after he gets cut by the Indianapolis Colts. And we know Kyle Shanahan pretty well at this point. Kyle Shanahan, thinks highly of Matt Ryan. I would absolutely not squash that idea of Matt Ryan being on the 49ers this year.
You can talk me into that. It's just I watched him, he was bad. But if you're saying, well, he's not the savior of your team, then I can.
You're not signing him to some 4-year contract where he's starting over anybody out of the gate.
Right.
He's in camp with you as maybe a backup, and he has to be okay with that. He's what Joe Flacco is right now, and that's the portion of the career. And Matt Ryan might say, "Nah, screw that. I'm gonna hang him up," which makes a lot of sense. I don't know why Joe Flacco's playing third-string quarterback right now for the Jets. He's already got a Super Bowl too. He doesn't have to ring chase. At least Matt Ryan ring chase a little bit.
Why not? I think third-string quarterback in the NFL they say second-string quarterback in the NFL is the best job. I think third-string quarterback is.
Yeah, third-string because you're even less likely to play.
It's like I'm chilling.
All right, let's get to this beef. Tariq Woolen and Jauan Jennings next. Thanks once again, everybody, for making us your first listen. Make sure you check out Locked On NFL Draft, Locked On NFL. Your favorite teams are covered not only in the NFL, but Major League Baseball. It's getting going here. We got some real games starting to happen in spring training, NBA, of course, NHL, college, sports, and, of course, the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Subscribe to the new Peacock and Williamson YouTube channel. Do you want to lay out what happened with the beef here? I think it's hilarious because of it just came out of left field. It was like from the top rope, Jauan Jennings on social media coming at Tariq Woolen because he responded to a tweet from the NFL. It was just the NFL handle said before his Pro Bowl rookie season, Tariq Woolen showed out at the combine, getting the combine hype coming. And nobody was talking to Jauan Jennings in any of this. And Jauan Jennings just comes out and says, boy, better stay in cover 3 or it's a buffet out there. That's hilarious. Just out of nowhere, trash talking Tariq Woolen. And what was Tariq Woolen's response?
Tariq Woolen's response was, man, you're the only receiver that's talking. And again, I'm not reading it, so I'm kind of paraphrasing it, but it's along these lines. You're the only receiver that's talking. You better stick to running out routes and blocking because you're a tight end.
I don't know if Tariq Woolen listens to the podcast, but I remember last offseason, I was like, I think kind of Jauan Jennings kind of like a tight end for the 49ers. And, he might not take too kindly to that. And he was more than a tight end for the 49ers this year. But I think it's hilarious that Tariq Woolen went there with him. And I don't know. I thought that was a funny beef because it came out of nowhere. And, Jauan Jennings is definitely not afraid to beef with people on the field or seemingly off now.
He's going to mix it up a little bit. But I think I commented because I saw it on the 49er, the blogs on Instagram. Shout out to the SF 49ers. All right. But I was on there and I saw it and I'm like, well, I think they both got a point. I think Tariq Woolen is, he's tailor-made for kind of that type of scheme. I think he does a really good job of that. Long corner, rangy, athletic, and he had a bunch of interceptions, making the Pro Bowl. And then, Jauan Jennings, like you said, he's essentially a tight end. That's really like how to utilize him. And he runs those out routes. How many other routes have you seen him catch?
I did see some people reply with the long Jauan Jennings catch that could have been a touchdown. I don't think was a touchdown against the Seahawks, but he wasn't like in man coverage on Tariq Woolen or anything. And actually, he was kind of hidden coming out of like basically an H-back set, if I remember. Or maybe he was just in motion. I don't remember, but I remember he came out of like the trash kind of and ran that deep route, almost like a wheel route from an H-back spot. So that's not really good evidence of Jauan Jennings cooking Tariq Woolen or anything like that. But
and it's essentially kind of aligns with what Tariq Woolen was saying, right? When you talk about where he lined up on that play, like you just said Jennings and H-back in the same same sentence.
Yeah, and he's utilized a lot like that, and he's utilized outside of like a receiver too. So he's not like just a tight end, but he does a lot of tight end stuff, and he's a really good blocker like a tight end. And if he converted full time to tight end, I think he'd be pretty darn good at it, and probably be a really good tight end too for the 49ers after George.
Very aggressive.
Yeah. But I didn't see the trash talking from Woolen and Russell Wilson. By the way, they were never teammates because Tariq Woolen was a rookie last year, and Russell Wilson was already gone.
I wish we were able to pull up the soundbite from it because it was comedy, but it was one of those things where, and I think when you get to the NFL, especially when you're one of these younger guys, like you kind of grow up watching these guys, right? Like I just talked about Andrew Luck, 2012 being drafted. Well, that was the same year Russell Wilson was drafted. So how old was Tariq Woolen in 2012?
Yeah, he was
we're
like
talking about 10, 11 years ago. He probably was.
Junior high at the oldest.
Right. We were talking about somebody young. So he grew up watching Russell Wilson. And he said they played against Denver. And he saw Russell Wilson. So I'm trying to make it a little bit more dramatic. He played against Denver. He sees Russell Wilson. And he said, man, I knew he was a little shorter, but I was a little surprised because he looked like a sack of potatoes. He said Russell Wilson looked like a sack of potatoes on the field. Like just not in shape, really round, short, just this butterball of a football player. And it's funny because I listened to my guys, Haberman and Middlecoff, and they were talking about how Russell Wilson just looks out of shape. Now, he did give him props by saying, but he was athletic. Maybe he could have felt bad because now it's out there, right? Like he's saying all this it's on the podcast. Mm-hmm. He's chilling, talking with some buddies or whatever. It's live in person. Like it's like 4 guys sitting around. And he's like, man, he looked like a sack of potatoes. And I was dying laughing. I think because Russell Wilson, he just catches strays left and right.
Oh, he
right?
does.
Like everybody looks at Russell Wilson and he's the butt of a lot of jokes. So I feel bad from that standpoint because I know Russell Wilson's probably like, what did I do?
I'm just getting body shape over here.
But it is what it is, man. I mean, got a sack of potatoes. And that's the funny thing, too, because you can't see somebody in person and they just look a lot different, right? I mean, I know a lot of our listeners, you got the Instagram models, right? The girls and the men. I want to make sure I mention men because we did have a female listener one time. Like, Eric, I think you forgot you have female listeners. All right, but the women and men, you can see them on social media and they might look a certain way. And then you see them in person and you're like, you take good angles, right?
Yeah.
You got the angles down.
Oh, dude, I'm so glad I'm not like single and on the dating apps. Like I've heard so many stories about that where like, getting catfish on the apps and they show up like, what? You don't look anything like any of the photos. Like speaking of angles, there might have been some CGI going on with it stuff.
Well, Russell Wilson and his camp and the NFL, I think they've been taking a lot of good angles of him because in person sounds like he's built like a sack of potatoes. And that is probably that's probably one of the biggest insults that you can say about like a professional athlete, that you are built like a sack of potatoes.
Especially a quarterback because they're usually statuesque and tall and lean type of dudes. And even the unathletic ones are, they're bigger and you could tell they're, a pro athlete of some sort, and Russell Wilson's a little shorter. And the thing with Russ, with his persona too, is he like presents himself as this perfect guy. So if he's not perfect, you can't wait to call him out on it. And man, he is catching it from all angles right now.
He is. And he was in the magazine and I saw it on my timeline earlier today. And somebody was just like, man, like, Russell just, and I'm looking at the picture. It's not a bad picture. They got the right angles of him, right? But it's like a men's health magazine or it's something along those lines of that. He has his shirt off. And I think just the thought of him, people just think he's very, the word a lot of people use now, cringy.
Yeah.
He's cringe. I think he's just very cringe.
Mm-hmm.
And people, no matter what it is that he does, they can't get past that. There were people that attacked him. And again, I don't know details. I ain't diving into his financial situation, but it was like a lot of money, like millions of dollars being donated to his foundation. And then then he had to come out and do like a press release where he kind of like didn't deny it, but he talked in circles about like, hey man, we give our money directly to something along the lines. Now he never said that this stuff is true or not, but I hate the fact that he has to deny, like, go out there and speak and everybody talks about him because he doesn't bother anybody. It'd be one thing if he goes out of his way to go at people, attack people, but then he's just this corny dude. And he's a little corny. But he's corny to himself. His wife loves him. He's a great father. He does all these things. He's an ultimate professional. His teammates, they're like, man, he's a great professional. But everybody just attacks him. And I kind of get it, but I feel bad for him because he just stays in his lane.
It is a little unfair because he's mostly just corny. And it's not like he's going at anybody, but he's still catching strays. But yeah, I did see that report. It's only 24% of his of donations to his foundation actually went to charities. Yeah. And yeah, that's a pretty bad look. That's probably the worst thing that has been attached to Russell Wilson aside from his play last year.
And he makes so much money. And when you are a family man, usually you do well with your money. So it's like I don't think he's hiding money or using money on different things or. I don't think it's that. I mean, he's made a lot of money in the NFL.
People are even crushing him because he had 12 bathrooms in his Denver home that he bought, the Denver mansion he bought.
I could see how you could have 12 bathrooms if all the rooms have like restrooms. Like me, right? I have a little bit more standard. We have, how many bedrooms do we have? So this is an office, but we have Donner's, guest bedroom, our bedroom, that room. So we got 4 bedrooms and we have 3 bathrooms, but they're 3 full bathrooms. And our guest bedroom has a full bathroom as well, right? Well, I could see if you just live in a big old house where you might have these half bathrooms or maybe you have full ones around, but maybe the bedrooms have bathrooms as well.
Yeah, like all the guest bedrooms are almost like masters for people to have their own bathrooms there.
Right.
You got a bathroom when you enter the house.
12 is a lot, but yeah.
A lot, yeah, but if you got a lot of rooms, then maybe you got a bathroom near the back door. Maybe there's an outdoor bathroom near the pool area.
Yeah,
right?
I have a bathroom in my pool area.
There you go. So you got 4 bathrooms.
You got 4 bathrooms. There we go. Quarter away. I just need about 8 more, and I'll catch Russell Wilson.
You're 25% of Russell Wilson right now.
I have bathrooms at my gym, and it's on my land, so that's.
You got 6 bathrooms. You're halfway to Russell.
No. I got, if I count my bathroom at the pool, and then my bathrooms at the gym, because the gym I have 4 stalls, so I got 2 and 2. So I got 8.
If you got a men's and women's bathroom, I think that counts. But
I have a men's and women's, and there's 2 in each with the stalls thing.
I'm gonna call it 6.
Okay.
I think you're overcounting there.
All right, so I'm halfway there.
Don't be like Russell Wilson's charity.
Miscounting.
All right, we got to go. Thanks, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen. Check out Peacock and Williamson, Locked On NFL Draft, everything the network has to offer. And, of course, Croc and I will be back tomorrow and every day throughout the offseason right here, Locked On 49ers.